Hi there, Megan Thompson here with Megan Thompson Coaching, and today we are going to cover the highly sensitive trait for adults. Now, here we are on our show, Parenting Your Highly Sensitive Child Like a Ninja, and one of the things that we've found over the years in serving our clients who are adults is that many of our clients discover that they're highly sensitive once they start to learn more about their child's needs and they start to draw parallels. So when working with parents of sensitive kids who are stuck in the meltdown cycle, we tend to notice some patterns in the parent's contribution to that meltdown cycle. This is why here at MTC, I and my team, we all notice that it is a family dynamic problem rather than considering it to be a one single child problem or just a children problem if you're parenting multiple kids who are having meltdowns. As parents, we contribute to how our children relate to the world, and we influence our children regarding how they relate to the world, and we need to take certain ownership of that without falling into the belief that we can control our kids' behavior 100%. So if you can hold those two things true at the same time, you influence your child and your child is learning how to control their behavior, then you can stop deciding that your behavior is a direct cause for your child's behavior. You can stop feeling blamed by that statement. You can start feeling inspired by that statement and learn how to influence your kids' behavior in a more effective way. So that's what we're going to talk about here, because we don't just work directly with parents through our boot camp, where we're helping parents change their child's ineffective and unsafe or not developmentally appropriate behaviors. We also work with adults who are highly sensitive, who need help learning how to enhance their resiliency skills. And we do that through our program called Resilience Empowerment Institute, and REI for short. So when we work directly with adults who might not have worked with us directly through our boot camp, this is part of this conversation, is really helping that anyone who comes in our door, if you will, or comes on to listen to our show and who relates to sensitive kids in some way, whether you're a teacher, you're a therapist, or you're a parent of a sensitive kid yourself. I want you to be able to have the skills to manage your own mindset, to manage your own perceptions of reality, and to grow your sense of self-empowerment and self-efficacy in managing not just your emotions, but also in how you relate to other people, in order to stand tall in making the influence and the impact that you want to make in your community. So that's where REI was born. That's the focus. Because these are lifetime skills that parents and adults need to have in order to influence children, and especially children who are world changers. I believe that sensitive kids are here on this earth in order to create lasting and deep change in our society, and in order to give our kids the full potential that we know that they have the possibility to reach. We have to make sure we're staying out of the way of their development and leading them effectively, right? So I'm not talking about passive getting out of the way, just letting your kid figure it all out, or letting these kids figure it all out if you're not a parent of a sensitive kid, but you do work with them in some way. I want you to really hear me when I say taking ownership to own your side of the street without requiring a child or your peers to help you be in charge of your emotions. So that's the work that we do in REI. And one of the things that I think is important for us to talk about on today's show is the understanding of the personality trait. Now, I'm going to do my best to do this justice without giving you personalized support and understanding. So bear with me here, because this is a training that will go on our podcast and also meet some of our internal platforms, but without a back and forth, to help you really understand how you fit this criteria. It can feel like it's not all encompassing, but it is my job today to help give you clarity and help you reach a more thorough conclusion in understanding your temperament. So the first thing that you need to know when we're talking about temperament is that temperament is different from personality. All right. So I think what I'm going to do is take notes and with you on this, and I'll probably potentially cover my face. See if I can. What do I got going on here? Oh, that's weird. Oh, there it is. Okay, good. On the screen here. So if you're listening to the podcast on just the audio, I encourage you to check us out on YouTube and watch this one. We also stream it live on Facebook on the business page, but I encourage you to go ahead and watch the video associated with this so you can walk through how I'm demonstrating this as well. But when we're describing the personality trait, we want to be thinking about the sensitive nature of a human being and whether or not a person was born sensitive biologically. And you need to separate that from your behaviors that make up how you see yourself or how you behave right now. That is part of your personality. Okay, so we think about the timeline of life. We have birth, and then we have your nature, and this is your temperament. Okay, and then we have your nurture, how you were nurtured, plus, oh, I should make that a little bit more attractive. Nature plus nurture, how you were nurtured, how you were parented, how you were raised by the school system, how you were impacted by society, and that leads to your personality. All right. So unfortunately, somewhere in all of the like pop psychology learnings and readings and teachings, the highly sensitive temperament trait got pegged as a personality trait, and it's not a personality trait. It is a temperament trait. So temperament is how you're born. And then when we impact your temperament with how you're being raised, then we have an end result of how you show up in the world, and that's considered your personality, right? So temperament is, for example, like someone who is naturally reserved. All right. And if they're nurtured to in like an aggressive environment, like their parents are invalidating, harsh, punish, berate, or criticize, then this can lead to a wallflower personality. Okay, so you see reserved has a little bit more of a neutral description of a temperament, but when we add nurture, we tend to describe personality traits as a combination of nature plus behavior. And you can tell that in the language. And that is true in the word wallflower or hermit, right? I mean, I'm getting judgmental here because I'm here to explain the societal differences in how we describe behavior. We attribute it to personality, and then some people start to identify with these personality descriptors, and they start to say, I am a wallflower, I am a hermit. And that's when we start to feel like our personality is our identity, when in reality you were designed and made to be more reserved, more watch, wait, and see, assess the environment. But that doesn't mean you have to be a wallflower or a hermit. It's just the impact of how you're raised and then how you decided or how you were told that this is all there is. So as soon as you hear, oh, I don't have to be like that, I hope that that's inspiring to you to notice that you can shift some of those behaviors and your personality will change. So that's a choice, right? If you like being a wallflower and it doesn't limit you, and you like being a hermit and it doesn't limit you, go right ahead. Stay that way. I'm not here to tell you you have to fix anything. or change anything. But I do want you to notice that if you're an adult and you feel easily overwhelmed by your emotions, you take in a lot of information from the world, and that leads you to living an inhibited life or an emotionally reactive life, then this is the show for you. It is time to pay attention. Okay. So, that is not who you are. That is who you've become, and you can change who you've become. So, let's look at this in a more pointed manner. What I've found, it looks like, I need to do a better job when I'm drawing here, of giving myself a margin, because I just noticed that with all my screens up, I need to give myself a better margin. So I will I will correct this birth. You can see better. Okay. And then personality. And then wallflower. All right. And then I'll pay better attention to getting all these words written properly for you, for those of you who are watching the YouTube. I just started using this with this platform here, and not catching all my things. All right, so let me go ahead and draw myself a margin so I don't jack that up for the rest of the time. All right. Okay, so we're good to go. Now, what I want to identify is in the research that this temperament trait was named. That was done in the 1990s by Dr. Elaine Aron, and she named the personality trait to include 4 key themes in, I just said it, personality, temperament trait, excuse me, to name 4 key themes that all highly sensitive people demonstrate in their experience of the world internally, their report of how they experience the world, and then also external behavior patterns that we can see. So I will put that up on the screen here as well. And we have 4 main sections of the temperament trait. And when I say sections, I mean everybody who's highly sensitive fits all 4 components, she calls it, of the personality trait. So if we were to look at this from an understanding that if you only fit 3, you're not likely to be highly sensitive. Now, I don't want you to use this data and this report, this show, to describe your kids' behavior, because quite frankly, I've worked with thousands of parents at this point, and most parents get this wrong. And that's okay. Like, you're not supposed to be an expert on temperament to decide to have kids. So it's very, very often, almost I would say 100% of the time, our parents go through our work directly where I teach down to the letter of how sensitive kids can demonstrate behavior and experience the world, and parents have huge aha moments on like missed observations. And that's true for anything. I'm not a specialist in internal medicine, so I'm definitely going to miss if there's internal bleeding, because if I slice open a belly, there's going to be blood, and I don't know if it's coming from the skin I just cut or some sort of organ, right? Like, I'm not an expert on that. So same thing if I look inside a car engine and it's making a funny noise, I'm not going to know how to diagnose it. And I'm probably going to miss some stuff if somebody tells me, like, if it makes a sound, like, it's probably the brakes, right? But is it the brake pads? Is it the grease? I don't know. I'm going to make myself sound stupid if I keep talking about this, so I'm going to stop. And I'm saying this to normalize and also to crack a little humor into this conversation, that you're not supposed to get it right off of a free show, right? So this is for educational purposes and not necessarily comprehensive, catch-all, personalized purpose. But let's dive in. All right. We have depth of processing. Okay. So Depth of processing is component 1. And what do I mean by that? I mean that the information that comes in to your world, here's your brain, here's your head, here's your nose, here's your body. I am not an artist. Here's your brain. There's a lot of information that comes in like a funnel, right? And highly sensitive people take in more information from the world. What information do they take in? They take in physical observation. Like it's cold, or the sky is bright, or my sweater is itchy. Okay, so physical observation. And then they take in auditory information. Okay? That child over there is crying loudly. This person in the restaurant is chewing and smacking their lips, for example, whatever. There's a dripping and a humming going on, and I'm pretty sure no one's noticing because it's in the other room. So some people might be auditorily sensitive. And then we have the information of somebody's facial features. So what do you see, right? Inflections in people's voice. Again, going back to what do you hear? Okay. And then your own emotions and your own thoughts. And then your thoughts about those emotions. And your thoughts about those thoughts. And then your thoughts about the fact that you're thinking about your thoughts and you just forgot what the person said and now you're worried about whether or not they can tell. So there's a lot going on in your mind at any given moment if you're a highly sensitive person that is not the average person's experience. When I say average, I mean the highly sensitive person is 1 out of every 5. That means 80% or 4 out of 5 people are not thinking about their thinking about their thinking. So there's a depth here we're talking about that is not average. Okay. Now, all of this information coming in, there's more of it and it's deeper. So I feel sad. Then I feel sad, then I'm sad. Then I judge myself for feeling sad, so I feel guilty. Then I feel guilty for feeling sad, and I notice that most people probably don't feel guilty about their own feelings, so then I tell myself there's something wrong with me. So there's a big old spiral. And I also experience this in the positive, so it's not the same as depression or anxiety. I feel happy. And then that reminds me of other happy things. And then that reminds me of even more happy things. And I get excited about my imagination taking me to the next time I'm going to experience this happiness and how I experience a depth of the positive emotions. That doesn't happen in depressed people. That doesn't happen in anxious people. They just feel happy about the circumstance. Depressed people might not even be able to call up happiness. So if you're trying to wonder whether or not you fit the criteria for a mental health issue, or if you have a highly sensitive temperament trait, understanding the layers of the depth of processing is going to be necessary for you. Because it's not mood dependent. Your behavior might be mood dependent if you're a highly sensitive person without skills, but your depth of processing is not. And this is one thing that I just know that parent coaches will get this wrong. Mommy bloggers will get this wrong. Psychologists who discuss the temperament trait from an understanding that is not based on the research of the temperament trait, but instead based on like the anecdote of their own personal experience witnessing sensitive children. You might be confused because, again, you found me because you want help with parenting. Or you know somebody who got help with parenting and they turned you on to our work. And so what that means is that you probably have a reference point of certain children who could have big explosive emotions or implosive emotions. And you might consider them to be deeply feeling kids. And that is just from a research standpoint and an understanding standpoint and a framework, like a lens of how you see the child, how you see yourself. It's not accurate. It's insufficient. So, because it's not the fact that your feelings are deep. It's the fact that all information you take in goes deep. And that means that your brain is at the core, processes information deeply, all information, not just feels big feelings. Okay, so I bring us to the next part of the temperament trait, which is being easily overstimulated. So not only do you notice, which is that depth of processing, the additional auditory information, for example, or the bright lights, or your own emotions, you are also more readily impacted by the intensity of that observation. So you have for example, you may have a sharpened sense of auditory sensitivity. So loud noises bother you more than the average person. And because of that, I just said it bothers you more. So you're feeling bothered more regularly. So you're easily overstimulated. It's too much when we add them all up, right? So it makes sense that if you're taking in a lot of information from the world, itchy sweater, high-pitched noises, background noise, things like that, that it's going to add to the load of emotion that your body is carrying, and your nervous system gets impacted like that. So think about, if you're not highly sensitive, hearing someone chew like this isn't going to feel like Chinese water torture, like the drip, drip, drip that we all know that that's extremely difficult to tune out. Why? Because it's inconsistent. It's not typically a constant drip, drip, drip. It's like drip, 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 drip. I won't go into the psychology of torture, but you could probably, just based on watching any sort of movies or, growing up as an adult who didn't live under a rock, understand that sporadic intensity is more triggering to the nervous system, like nails on a chalkboard would be. It creates that sensation in the body more often when it's unpredictable. Now, that doesn't mean that if it's predictable, it will be soothing to you, because that's, those two things are not hand in hand. But human behavior is unpredictable. So, you can't measure it with a clear and consistent pattern. So you can be more overstimulated in your relationships or in your interactions with humans, even if you're an extrovert. So where you feel like you crave human connection and it energizes you, it can still overstimulate you. So this is why we don't talk about, when I say a reserved temperament, I'm not saying introvert or extrovert is a temperament. Introvert and extrovert is a personality. Because some of it is reinforced, healthily or not. Okay. Easily overstimulated. If I'm wearing an itchy sweater and then my 2-year-old is crying and my dog starts barking, because my second dog, his bark is exceptionally loud and obnoxious. I really, really like that dog. But it's hard for me to say I truly unconditionally love him because his bark is just really, really hard to tolerate. So I do love him, I promise you. But he's not as easily lovable as my first dog. Let's just put it that way. So, and so again, we're going back to like when all of that's happening as a human being, I will be easily overstimulated by that. And we think of a highly sensitive person having those instances more often, sometimes even daily, especially without skills. So to regulate emotions at a higher level. So we have this part of the personality trait, the temperament trait. See, I'm even doing it myself twice today. All right. Next one is emotionally responsive. Now, Elaine Aron says that it's responsivity. And a lot of people will take that to mean reactivity. Even early in my career teaching this online, I used the word reactivity. And honestly, I think it was just a misnomer. Like I took the trait information and was like, yep, makes perfect sense, and grabbed it. But I see the benefit of putting them both there, because people who are just getting to know us here as a team, you will likely see it more like reactivity rather than responsivity, unless, of course, you're a highly sensitive person who's highly self-aware and exceptional at managing your mindset, your perspective, and your emotions. And you'll notice that you're more responsive. But most people will think that the word reactive resonates more. Because responsive can indicate that you're responding skillfully. And so I don't want people to think that would be part of the innate trait. Not a lot of highly sensitive people, especially, when we're talking about kids, but this is about adults. Without learning emotion regulation skills and distress tolerance skills and mindset shifting skills, highly sensitive people tend to be more emotionally reactive rather than actually responding to their own emotions effectively. So we're going to put that here, emotional. Okay. Everybody's emotional, so I'll spell it out. My thing will let me. Emotionally responsive. Okay. So, this is the piece that most people see, right? The yelling, the crying, the easily overwhelmed, emotionally easily moved to tears, big happy feelings. I described it because, especially for parent coaches, like there's some pretty prominent parent coaches that use this part of the temperament trait and run with it and call it deeply feeling. But that's not it. You feel deeply as a person. Okay. Here's your heart. Beautiful. But you're not regulating that emotion if you don't have the skill set. Okay. So, it could mean, attention-seeking behaviors, manipulation behaviors, acting in a way that you wish you hadn't, so experiencing a fair amount of regret, or having some shame spirals yourself, like regretting your emotions and telling yourself you're a bad person. So, sorry, I'm leaning over and I'm covering my face here with this. Let me just take this off for now. Okay, so I want to make sure that we're clear on that. I want to see if there's more in my mind about the emotional responsivity. I want to talk about the difference between compassion, empathy, and self-compassion, because if you don't have emotion regulation skills, Marsha Linehan, who's a clinician who designed dialectical behavior therapy, she designed this treatment for sensitive people who are born sensitive, so highly sensitive people, who had experienced chronic invalidation, which is traumatic, and then developed ineffective coping skills like hurting themselves or threatening suicide or risky behaviors, chronic promiscuity, addiction, etc. And DBT was designed to keep people out of the hospital when they were cyclically in the hospital through self-harm and working to unalive themselves. And very real behavior, not faking it, not making it up, but definitely not skillful, and repeated challenges. And so she designed this mental health treatment. It's to date the only evidence-based treatment that helps the highly sensitive people in the world who have this problem as effectively than what I could see. I do have the training in DBT, and I've been to train the trainer trainings associated with this treatment, and used to run a clinic specializing with this treatment for adolescents and in children. So I'm biased in my expertise, and it's also true that the research is pervasive, that some people are born sensitive when they're raised in a chronically invalidating environment, which means invalidating over and over again. That's what chronic means. Then people develop life-threatening behaviors. And so, because chronic invalidation is traumatic, you can Google it. But when somebody grows up in that environment, purely by a mismatch in parenting, parents telling you it's not that big of a deal, stop being so dramatic, and you need to just get over it. Just that creates a trauma reaction that leads to life-threatening behaviors for sensitive people. And even if a person, so, if you're listening and you're like, there's something wrong with me, and then you're noticing this matters, right? This resonates, then I want you to pay attention to the fact that you might have been presumed to not be very empathetic, have a hard time demonstrating compassion to yourself, and have a hard time demonstrating compassion to others consistently because of your emotional reactivity. However, that's more due to a lack of skill than it is due to a lack of ability, because what we see is that highly sensitive people actually are way more empathetic than the average person. They just have a hard time expressing it and acting on it skillfully if they don't regulate their emotions that they're having in reaction to watching someone suffer or feeling suffering while someone else is suffering too. So in arguments where you're both having a hard time, for example, is one. So you're saying things or doing things that you regret, shutting down, choosing not to contribute, insulting, or reacting in some other way, and then you might be called like you lack empathy, or you're not very compassionate to yourself because you have a shame spiral after that event. A lot of regret, which can then lead people to question why you do the behavior in the first place, but it's more complicated. So then just knowing what to do. So people can interpret falsely that you're manipulating them, because if you cared enough, you would change yourself. But transformation requires work and specialty when it comes to sensitive people who have this spiral, even if that spiral is not life-threatening, like I'm talking about here. So, but if it's relationally damaging, then, then it can indicate a lack of resiliency, right? Where you don't feel very empowered leading your life and managing your emotions effectively. So, part of the reason why we started REI is for that purpose, because we have people coming to us who don't necessarily need help stopping a meltdown cycle in their household, but they want emotion regulation skills themselves as adults. So, I want to just help you see the skill set and the potential that you might have if you weren't so emotionally responsive to, to notice that you are emotionally reactive if you don't have skills to that emotional responsivity. And so you might be telling yourself you're not supposed to be so responsive to other people's emotions or notice them as much, but that actually is a strength of yours if you know how to handle your own reaction to those emotions, which is a different thing. All right. So hopefully, again, an identification of some growth and skill building that is possible for you. And then when we go into the last piece, this one is where most people identify sensitivity from a sensory standpoint. So we have sensitive to stimuli, to subtleties, subtle stimuli, like an itchy sweater driving you so crazy that you can't keep it on, right? I use that as an example, itchy sweater, when I teach my clients this, because I don't like wearing itchy sweaters. And now that I'm an adult, I don't buy them except for the one I keep for skiing. Because you can't get better than wool. But I don't buy wool anymore, right? Why? Because I'm uncomfortable. But I have this sweater on, which is like ribbed and all kinds of interesting textiles. It's not soft. It's fun. It has a fun pattern on it. When I stand up, you can see like a flower. So I like it. It's not the softest material though. And so when I think about, and the way that I describe this to adults is that you may wear something that as a non-sensitive person that isn't the most comfortable. But once you add like your kids climbing on you and it's at the end of the day and you've been running from meeting to meeting and, the radio's on in the background and you're hungry, that's when the sweater becomes too much and you just want it off your body. And that kind of, I just need to have it off my body happens at the beginning of the day when someone puts on the sweater, if they have a sensitive to stimuli, tactile stimuli sensitivity, where the subtle shift of like this sweater isn't like, there's a little bit of a, I don't know what, because it's not a cheap sweater, but I don't know what material is. I mean, it's definitely synthetic, but it's just not soft, right? And so I'm tolerating wearing it, and my brain, being not highly sensitive, can tune out the sensation from my skin, and have the appreciation of the pretty pattern and the look be the priority. And unless there are multiple straws on my back, it's not going to break the camel's back, if you will. But a highly sensitive person wouldn't be able to tolerate the sensation if they're sensitive to tactile input. So that is one of the things that I describe. It doesn't have to be tactile though. When I say subtle stimuli, I'm talking about somebody giving you a look and then you're just off to the races in your mind on like why that look might be, right? Or somebody changing their behavior and taking it personally because your perception is to interpret how you impact your community, and you're wired to do that as a highly sensitive person. But without emotion regulation skills, you tend to take other people's behaviors personally and move it more into like the maximum capacity here. So people think that you're dramatic. People think that you're, narcissistic or self-centered, where you take things too personally for that. But if in general you're not having that overreaction, they say that to you slightly occasionally when they're miffed or bothered by your behavior. But it really bothers you to hear that because you're like, what's up with that? Why is nobody else getting that feedback about themselves? So this can be one of those subtle indicators that look where you start to call yourself crazy when people say, hey, it's not that deep, or hey, it's not that serious, don't be dramatic. It can impact your self-esteem if you don't understand yourself. So hope that helps you clearly understand, or much more effectively understand, the personality trait and what can be done, and where the skill gaps can be. Once you understand yourself, you can learn more about what is needed to grow in this trait. So you're not trying to pathologize yourself and, make yourself feel like you have to fit in, be the same, or pretend to be someone that you're not, and have this internal conversation that, everything is, everything that you do is wrong or bad or a mismatch. So, I'm not going to go into right now the difference. I did talk about the difference between depression and anxiety and the highly sensitive trait. I'm not going to get into the difference between autism and the highly sensitive trait in depth, because I've already been talking for, this is a long training. This is about 40 minutes. But I want to talk about the main overarching difference is the inner world of a highly sensitive person compared to the inner world of an autistic person. So, someone who is highly sensitive can tend to observe that their communication to connect to other people is a process where you can reach resolution in managing frustrations and overwhelm. Someone who is autistic tends to have a challenge in assuming talking about the problem, communicating verbally about the problem is going to get anywhere, is going to lead to the result. It's not just vulnerable due to chronic invalidation, leading to inhibiting yourself from sharing. It's a there's a thinking process that feels absurd's the wrong word, superfluous or unnecessary when you wonder whether or not you need to share your inner world with other people. But because if you're autistic, because you want other people to relate to you, and you notice that the way you think is different than others, you tend to go straight to performing how you see other people interact in the world. And that's called masking, where you're putting on a performance and it's extremely exhausting. That's different than people pleasing. I notice other people's feelings before my own. And I notice my own, but I'm overwhelmed and I don't want to be rejected by anybody, or I don't want to upset other people. I don't want to be seen as a burden. And so then I'm going to try to people please and be a doormat, but then I end up kind of wrecking those relationships because eventually I explode on them. That's more of a pattern for a highly sensitive person. I either explode or I shut down and I close those relationships off, compared to an autistic person who is working to fit in, noticing that they're different, not wanting to get rejected, and also feeling misunderstood in priorities and misunderstood in needs. It's different than misunderstood in emotional reaction and how much information you take from the world. So there are definitely some overlaps with overstimulation, with the emotional reactivity can be common for autistic people, but the depth of processing is a different it's a different mental experience for someone who's autistic compared to someone who is highly sensitive. And while I'm not autistic, I will say that I've worked with autistic people for a really long time. I've worked with parents of autistic children for a really long time, and have created success without trying to make autistic people not autistic. So, I tend to think that I'm good at understanding the difference without creating, without trying to make people, without invalidating autistic people, or seeing it as a disability in a way that is inhibiting for the autistic person. What do I mean by inhibiting? I mean, othering, okay, for someone who's autistic. So, maybe a training for another day. But what I want to do is really just hone in on this conversation and help you see that there are resources out there for you to solve this problem. If you're highly sensitive and your child is demonstrating major meltdowns, then you need to head over to our training, MeganThompsonCoaching.com/3, and then the word mistakes, because we help parents who are highly sensitive stop the meltdown cycle in their own home, even if they know that they are contributing and are having either their own internal or external meltdowns themselves. A lot of our clients can be highly sensitive, though it's not a requirement. We just help highly sensitive people notice their temperament. And then if you are a highly sensitive person, your kid's not having meltdowns, maybe you're raising a sensitive kid and your kid's not shutting down or demonstrating extreme behavior in some other way, and you know you have room to grow with your own personality, with your own communication skills, with how you advocate, and you don't want your emotional growth and your emotional level of understanding to stunt your child's development, then I would recommend that you head over to REI and you join us in our monthly subscription program. So this is MeganThompsonCoaching.com/REI, Resiliency Empowerment Institute, where we teach adults who either are highly sensitive or who are impacting highly sensitive children by either being parents, teachers, therapists, doctors, who really want to create, and somewhere in the helping field, who really want to create that level of emotional awareness and emotional resiliency and a sense of emotional intelligence that is above and beyond the average person, so that you can help sensitive children impact the world positively and lead from the front. And if that's the skill set that you're looking for, go to MeganThompsonCoaching.com/REI. In REI, we have a library of trainings that are similar to this, with clear and consistent action steps that you get on a weekly basis. So each week we meet for an hour on Wednesdays at 6 p.m. Eastern, and I train on a emotion regulation topic, a focus of resiliency, a communication pattern, a communication skill that will allow you to conquer your goals in life, and do this in a pointed way that creates consistent change. So we're talking about doing one homework assignment on a weekly basis, building your awareness and taking consistent action, because information without action will never create transformation. So a decision that you make to change your life, if you don't take action on that immediately, then that decision remains just a thought and you'll sit on it forever. So we help parents, we help adults who are looking to better themselves and improve their relationship with their own mind and other people, and live an empowered life. And we focus on that specifically related to the highly sensitive temperament and your own personal growth. So happy to help you there. If you are a parent of a highly sensitive kid and you're not highly sensitive, REI is still a fit. We have a lot of parents who are in REI and are not highly sensitive. So just for clarity's sake, certainly happy to answer any more questions. You can just email me, mt@meganthompsoncoaching.com. All right. Well, I just gave you 3 different links or 3 different things. So I would want to clarify. The vast majority of today's training is appropriate for people who would want to learn more about how you experience emotions and how you were raised and nurtured impacts your view of yourself and your personality, and whether or not that can shift so that you can focus more on how you were truly designed to reach your fullest potential. All right. So again, go to MeganThompsonCoaching.com/REI to learn more.